So hello everybody and welcome back to our social media series which explores Korean studies at Edinburgh University. This week I'd like to introduce Ji-Eun Ahn and Tong Zhou, who are both PhD candidates here at Edinburgh, supervised by Dr. Youngmi Kim. Ji-Eun is a third-year PhD candidate in sociology and Korean studies, whose research focuses on the emergence and repertoires of protests known as candlelight vigils in South Korea in the 2000s. Before starting her PhD at Edinburgh, Ji-Eun completed a BA and MA in sociology at Korea University. Tong is a PhD candidate in the Asian Studies department, coming to the end of her second year. And prior to this, she completed her undergraduate degree in broadcasting at the Communication University of China and an MSc in International Relations at Edinburgh University. Tong's research focuses on Xi Jinping's approach to foreign policy, comparing this with the foreign policy of Hu Jintao. So thank you both for joining me today. So first of all, I mentioned about both of your research projects a minute ago, but I wondered if you could talk about these in a bit more detail, particularly in terms of why you chose your project and the progression of your research. So Ji-Eun, we could maybe start with you and then go on to Tong, if that's okay.
Thank you for having me today. And actually, it might be a bit abstract comments on my whole project because it's very limited time to explain all of my whole project. So I'd like to start with how I can start my academic interest into social movement, maybe. So academic interest in social movement might be the most important motivation for me to immerse myself in sociology. So movement itself had not been paid much attention to in academic disciplines, which was only described as an extraordinary event in historical studies or explained partially at the edge of several social sciences, including psychology and politics. But sociology is the sole field of study to regard movement as a crucial object of research and to examine the whole life cycle of movement, ranging from its emergence to decline. That's maybe the reason why I chose the social movement as my main project, and especially after witnessing the emerged energy of public protests, the main topic of my research, which we call candlelight vigil in South Korea. So I began to work on my MS thesis about 2008 candlelight vigil, which attempted to analyze what frames participants shared and how these frames were formed, diffused, and changed through frame analysis. But still, questions remained behind the thesis writing in my MA program. How can we define the candlelight vigil, or does candlelight vigil appear regularly? Those kind of remained questions cost me some calling to get into the PhD for my whole project, the further project. So yeah, this is what I want to say.
That's great. Thank you, Ji-Eun. Tong?
Well, first, thank you for your invitation. I chose this topic because, on the one hand, it is an interesting topic. For international relations scholars, foreign policy change is a very attractive topic. In the macro level, foreign policy change is usually the result of the power balance change. However, this kind of explanation is a little bit too broad for the international politics in the real world. for example, in the end, all people shall die. Yet we all know our end. We are still longing for prophecies. So for real politics, the same logic. What is going to happen in the long term is important, but what will happen in tomorrow, in next week, in next month is more important. And for the macro level of international politics, we have to say we know very much, yet very few about foreign policy change. So on the other hand, I'm a Chinese and I'm very interested in what's happening in my country. So basically, that's why I choose this topic.
Oh, that's great. That's really interesting. Thank you both for that. So moving on to the next question, and we'll maybe start with you, Tong, for this one. So I think both of you are now quite well progressed through your doctorates. And I wondered if your projects had changed much at all from when you first started, and if so, how you navigated through that.
Well, my plan has not changed a lot after I started my PhD studies. But to be honest, I have changed my topic when I was applying for the PhD. My original topic was Sino-United States relations. I changed my topic because there are thousands of papers in this area, so it's a very competitive area. So I could not find a scholar who are interested in this research topic, so I changed my research topic. And I changed it to my current topic because these two actually are related. And so my previous research on this topic would not be wasted. So that's how I changed my topic, basically.
Great. How about you, Ji-Eun? Did you have to change things up at all?
Well, I think it's quite similar to Tong's experience because I don't think it changed a lot in terms of main research questions. However, obviously, through the whole process of PhD so far, I could elaborate the way how to find the answer to those research questions. And as if building a construction followed by the blueprint, I could see what I plan to explore through my project is becoming clearer, which is very exciting.
No, that's great. I think it shows that flexibility is very important, both probably before you start and also throughout, just to maybe kind of change things and evolve things depending on the way that your research is going as well. So that's great. So just moving on to the next question. So something that I think I've enjoyed so far about being a PhD student is having really good opportunities to expand our own research and networks through going to conferences or the Zoom conferences and seminars as well. And at Edinburgh, we obviously have the opportunity to audit postgraduate modules, which helps with broadening our own knowledge. For both of you, what would you say has been the most valuable experience during your time as a PhD student?
May I start?
Yeah, go for it.
May I go first? Of course, all experiences are amazing and very important, but I'd like to say that organizing and participating in conferences are especially valuable. Through the experience of conferences, I learned great importance of participating in academic communities, as I had believed that the great achievements in the academic world have been accomplished by a few extraordinary scholars. I had regarded an academic performance as a particularly individual task, which I should complete by my own ability or effort. On the contrary, all those collective works rely on the cooperation with academic colleagues, ranging from co-working to peer review. What makes my research flourish largely depends on to what extent I am willing to communicate with other researchers rather than to compete with them. In this sense, I think the experience of organizing and participating in conferences provided me great opportunity to interact with numerous scholars all over the world.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Tong, how about you?
Well, my answer is basically the same to Ji-Eun's answer. Organizing conference is the most valuable experience. And well, speaking of auditing seminars and modules, well, I think maybe the Institute for Academic Development, it has offered many valuable workshops for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really important point, actually, in terms of some of the academic study skills that we could all do with sort of progressing and working on. And it's great that at Edinburgh that we have the Institute for Academic Development to help us with that, definitely. Brilliant. So now I guess just sort of turning to the skill set that a PhD student might need. I think for me, time management seems really important, project management to keep things on track. I guess the first question would be, what's your approach to those sorts of skills? And then in terms of skills that are not maybe directly linked to academic research, which ones do you think are most important for PhD students to have or to develop over their time? So Tong, we can maybe start with you for this one.
Well, for your first question, I think the best way to manage time is to make plans. Well, you need to have your academic year plan, your semester plan, your monthly plan, and maybe also day plan. Like, for example, when you finish your today's work, and just use 5 to 10 minutes to write down the things you are going to do in tomorrow. So maybe that's the way to manage time the best. And for the skills, I think maybe social skills, especially for foreign students. Well, you know, with social skills, you can have access to more academic resources, and with more friends, you, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic time, if you have more friends, it is very important for your mental health. You can talk with them, and that's really helpful to reduce pressures.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Ji-Eun?
Yeah, I think Tong already pointed out all important things. So yeah, indeed, we could say PhD program is the course of struggling with time and project management, as you mentioned. So yeah, this is what I'm struggling with. I'm still struggling with, and maybe suffered from those things. It's all about the time. So as Tong recommended, we could make a plan, monthly, of course, yearly, monthly, daily, which is really demanding for me. But as also Tong also mentioned, peer support is the most important to keep my pace into the regular and peaceful in mentally and physically. So just go, but you know, during the pandemic, all of those peer support became very difficult, but still we could support each other during our whole process of PhD. I think that's the most important thing in the PhD program. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think certainly our cohort has been very good at the Zoom socials and things like that. So at least we've been able to kind of keep things up over the pandemic a bit as well. So finally, and I guess it might sort of touch upon some of the things that we've already discussed in terms of what your biggest challenge has been during your PhD. And then I suppose linked to this, if you had one piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring PhD student or someone that was just starting out, what would it be?
Well, I think for My biggest challenge was hard to say because there are so many challenges. But I think the biggest one, maybe I could not find the relevant academic papers for my research questions. Yeah, and for suggestion to other PhD students, especially the fresh PhD students, I think is, well, be strong, tough, clever, but don't be too ambitious and anxious. Yeah, that's my humble suggestion.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Obviously, my biggest challenge during my time as a PhD student is the pandemic. Yeah, for everyone, obviously, because as I mentioned before, the pandemic reduced our opportunity to get along and support each other, and you know, some of my colleagues should change their project plan as a whole. So those things, I mean, which is unexpected for us, could be the biggest challenge for PhD student because we cannot control those environment, I mean, situations. But at the same time, in that sense, we should be more relaxed and flexible to our plan. We don't need to follow what we planned. Just, of course, we need, as I mentioned, a blueprint for our building, which is the PhD thesis. But at the same time, we need to be flexible and feel free to engage with the changed plan as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and just be cheerful to get through this enjoyable course, because it's really challenging and it's really, in some sense, it's a kind of torture. But at the same time, I really enjoy this process because I can see what I want to see.
Yeah.
And this whole process to get closer step by step is really exciting, so, and amazing. So cheer up and
Yeah,
welcome.
I think
Welcome to
that's
the academic world.
indeed. And I think that's so true. It is a process and you have to kind of trust in that process as well. Absolutely. Well, this has been absolutely brilliant. I think there's been lots of very interesting and useful insights for current PhD students, aspiring PhD students, any sort of student that's maybe interested in pursuing this path. So thank you very much, Tong and Ji-Eun, for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.